Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, it's been a busy few months for British unions, facing up to Brexit, facing down the government over the public sector pay cap. So, who better to talk to than Dave Prentice, General Secretary of Unison, the biggest public services union in the UK. Mr. Prentice, lovely to see you.
Yeah, good morning.
I don't know if you witnessed the panel discussion that we had a few moments ago, which was intended to be about the future of the Labour Party, but actually gave us a fairly clear idea of where some of the divisions lie, at least within the PLP. In your mind, to what extent is the Labour Party united at the moment?
It's more united than it's been for some time. If you look at this conference, I think people look for undertones, undercurrents, they look for division. It's in all of the newspapers. But I've got to say, the agenda for this conference is outward looking. It's about what's happening within our society. It's about caring services. It's about public services, the pay cap, and the need to grow our health service, our education, housing. These are all positive issues which people want to listen to. And there is far less division at this conference than there is within the Tory party or any other political party in this country. Far less division. One or two issues, very small constitutional issues, but nearly all of the debate is about how we move forward in policy terms.
Still, in advance of conference, you wrote an article for the New Statesman in which you called for an end to the infighting. You don't tend to issue a call such as that when everything is sweetness and light.
Oh no, there is infighting. We know that. It's gone on for some time. There's infighting at local level. There's different groups vying for influence. And what I don't want is that local arguments taking place to actually come into our conference. This is where we set out our stall, not just to say that we're the best party, but the party that can win power and can take this country forward. And so, yes, I did make that plea. I think it's been honoured in the motions that we've seen coming forward, and we're going to have a great conference.
So just to be clear, are you, in essence, calling on people to stop rocking the boat? Or are you suggesting that Captain Corbyn might have to put up with a little bit of seasickness from time to time?
No, I think what I'm suggesting is that we're a broad church. I mean, I've been involved in the Labour Party for 40 years, and I've seen different groups come, different groups go, as the Labour Party has always progressed to the position where it's in now. And my call is that we accept we're a broad church, we may have difference, but we argue about those differences as one party. Not venomously, not infighting that can't be resolved, but we actually come together, recognise that we're on the point of taking power, and that's our first priority.
Just want to turn to that and focus on your view of the leader. Now, you previously described Jeremy Corbyn as a friend. At the same time, you have been critical when you felt it necessary. Autumn last year, Labour Party further away from government than at any point you can remember. You echoed those remarks in the aftermath of the Copeland by-election.
Yes.
Where we are now, is this all your positivity? Is that all, in essence, flowing directly from a general election result in which the Labour Party still couldn't win a majority?
I'm a critical friend, and I think Jeremy needs critical friends. Not everything that Jeremy says is completely right. Not everything that John McDonnell says is completely right. We look at it from a different perspective. We represent over 1 million low-paid women, and they're suffering because of what's happened in our society since the failure of the banks over 10 years ago. And our aim is to get them decent standard of living so they can put food on the table. They've lost an average £3,000 a year. And now we're saying something can be done. And we're just at the point, we didn't win the last election. I mean, this is the issue. We didn't win it, but we can win the next election if we pull together and have a clear agenda like we did in the last election.
Well, let's talk specifically about pay and public sector pay and the pay cap. Now, you've called for a 5% rise, isn't that right?
And £800.
Exactly. The Labour Party, currently, is proposing nowhere near that.
Well, the Labour Party, if they adopt our motion, which I know they will do, will be calling for it. The motion that we're putting forward commits the Labour Party to the claims that we're submitting, and it's the right thing to do. And I will actually say to you that give it a few weeks and we'll have the Tory party supporting it as well. We're talking not just to Labour as a trade union, we're also seeking to influence Tory MPs, especially in the marginals. You've got to remember, in the marginals they may have 100, 200 majority. We've got thousands of members in those marginals.
Wouldn't it better then have been to have that a proposal of that type in the manifesto when they're putting it directly to the public?
It was in the manifesto and we wrote it. That there would be the pay cap would end for public service workers.
But that doesn't. Yeah, but that is a different thing to promising public sector workers a real terms pay rise. On the figures in the manifesto, the pay cap goes, but people are still receiving, in essence, a pay cut when you factor in inflation.
The claim that we're putting forward is to restore some of the loss that's been incurred over the last 10 years.
But not give them a proper pay rise.
And to actually deal with inflation as it's coming now. We believe that it's affordable, the money is there to pay it. You can't come to us and say, well, the country can't afford it, because quite clearly it can. The rich in our society are doing very well. We're talking about a more progressive taxation system. We could even talk about deferring Trident in order that this be paid. But we'll make sure as a public service union that public service workers providing essential services, not just those wearing uniforms, who many of our members do, but all members get a uniform pay increase across all public services, and that will happen. Surely
what your members are asking for is not just an end to the pay cap, it's not just an end to taking it above the pay cap, it's a proper pay rise.
Yes.
Now, as things stand, if you have inflation around about 3%, on the plans that you and the Labour Party are putting forward, that's not going to be the case for quite some time.
On the pay claim that we've submitted, it will deal with the inflation that's happening now, and it will deal with some of the inflation that's happened in the past. But we want to move forward from there and make sure that we restore the position of public service workers. They've lost so much. I repeat again, 1 million women that we represent have lost over £3,000 a year. 600,000 jobs have gone in that period, and we need to restore our public services. They provide the fabric of our life. They look after the vulnerable, but you need workers who are decently paid to actually do that, to increase morale.
Slight change of direction. As the head of a union, what's your view on the decision by TfL to remove the licence from Uber? 40,000 people, it looks like, could be losing their source of income.
You've got to understand what's happened. Obviously, Uber, a new development, using new technology, it looks great on paper. But what you can't ignore is the safety of the people who are being carried. And I think the real reason why we've come to this impasse has been that there is no safety checks on the drivers that meet proper standards, that that problems are being hidden from the regulators, and they're using really bad practices that could put people in danger. Now, if they solve the issues that are being identified, well, then it may well be that the licence will not be taken away. And you've got to remember as well, it hasn't been stopped. They can appeal against it, but they've got to answer some of the massive criticisms that have been made by what is a really good regulator in London.
And just a final thought. Jeremy Corbyn in power and the head of the Labour Party for the foreseeable future.
Yes.
But who comes next?
Well, let's stay with Jeremy. It's like raking over the coals, and it's how long has Jeremy got left? Jeremy will take us into the next election, and we'll see who wants to come forward at that stage. But we work with the whole of the Labour Party. We're not working with one group. I'll make it clear, we don't work with Progress, we don't work with Momentum. We are affiliated to the Labour Party, and we support our leader, and we always have done.
It does seem likeliest, however, that whoever does take over will come from the left of the party. You concede that, at least?
It could well do, could well be. We'll have to wait and see. If they've got the best manifesto, if they've got the best leadership qualities, why not come from the left? Now, we've gone through many, many years of having right-wing Labour governments. Perhaps it's a turn of the left and see what they can do. But you cannot get away from the fact that Labour is almost on the point of winning the next election. And if there was an election this year, if the Tories fall apart as they are doing, Jeremy Corbyn will win that election.
Dave Prentice, many thanks for being with us.
I'm delighted to be joined by the General Secretary of the Unite, Len McCluskey. Good to see you.
Morning.
So you've been talking quite a lot about the public sector pay cap. like John McDonnell we've just been talking with, you want to see it scrapped.
Yeah.
You've talked quite a lot about the risk of strikes. Just first of all, how likely do you think strike action is?
Well, I'm hoping that the Prime Minister will respond to what is palpable anger, not just amongst public sector workers, but generally throughout our nation.
You've written to the PM, haven't you?
I've written to the PM
What
in relation to the issue of strikes and all this furore about being outside of the law. I've asked the Prime Minister to review once again the position of the 50% threshold.
Have you heard anything back?
Not yet. When David Cameron introduced this threshold, he did it on the basis that there was a democratic deficit. He was worried about low turnouts. I said to him, well, I agree with you. We're worried about low turnouts. Please give us secure workplace ballots. If you do that, Unite will accept the 50% threshold, because archaic postal systems.
So is that what you've asked the Prime Minister for?
Yes, it is. I've said.
So you would accept the 50% threshold if there were a different form of balloting?
If we had secure workplace ballots, that would eliminate the democratic deficit that the Tories are talking about.
Just because I think viewers, and probably me, don't really understand what's wrong with the current. Why do you not have confidence in the current voting system? Postal
ballots they're characterised by low turnout sometimes, not all the time, and we work.
Is it just that people forget to what you're saying is if it's in the workplace?
Yes, if they're in the workplace, all the evidence demonstrates that people vote one way or the other for strike action, against strike action.
But you don't have confidence in the voting system, which is presumably why you said you might have to take illegal strike action, or you might have to support illegal strike action. Do you stand by that?
Yes, but I'm urging the Prime Minister not to push workers outside of the law. Nobody wants to step outside of the law, least of all me. So what I'm saying to the Prime Minister, if you genuinely believe and are concerned about a democratic deficit, here's an easy answer. You won't have to push anybody outside of the law if you give us secure workplace ballots. And you know, the government haven't given us an answer. When I raised this with David Cameron, he asked me to meet with Sajid Javid. He, who was the business secretary at the time, he said to me that there's a lot of sympathy for what I was saying, but then wasn't the right time. I'm saying to the Prime Minister, now must surely be the right time. If she introduced this minor change in Parliament, I can assure her that the whole of the House would support her, and she would achieve what the government wants, eliminating any democratic deficit. Nobody would be pushed outside of the law, and we could all get on with our business in a sensible fashion.
And it was quite striking, however, that John McDonnell just now refused to say that he would support an illegal strike in that sense. Are you disappointed with the position of the Labour Party on this?
Not at all.
Why not? Because he's not backing you.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't expect the leadership of the Labour Party or any Labour MP to support a call to be outside of the law. I know that they are opposed to the current law, and they will do all they can inside Parliament to change this law. So I'm not looking for that support. I'm not looking to be pushed outside of the law. And I'll use your programme, Robert, once again to appeal to the Prime Minister. Don't push ordinary working people outside of the law. There's no need to. You can make this simple change, which will be democratic, and everybody will be happy.
Now, you all know what the Prime Minister said on Friday about a 2-year transition deal, at least, or she said around a 2-year transition deal, and then a trading arrangement after that you know, looks to be moving closer to the direction of the kind of thing that you would support. Do you feel that there is a big difference now between Labour and the Tories on our post-Brexit relationship?
Well, I always knew that the Prime Minister would have to move from this hard Brexit approach, this hard approach that she originally took. It makes sense to talk in terms of protecting jobs and investment. The only way you can do that is to have continued access to the single market. But I was taken by Labour at the last election. I thought they were the only political party that spoke for the whole nation. They spoke for the 48% and the 52%. They said, we want access to a single market to protect jobs and investment. But they also said that in terms of the free movement of labour, there has to be control of labour market regulations. Now,
but you're not. But you don't believe in controlling numbers of migrants coming to this country. You just want the conditions here to be better, don't you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. If you have a controlled labour market with proper regulations, so that greedy bosses don't use and abuse migrant workers to undercut paying conditions, the result of that, Robert, if that was introduced, and I believe a Labour government would introduce it, there would be a dramatic reduction of migrant workers. The problem that this Prime Minister has and the government have at the moment, whilst they're moving towards remaining in the single market for a transitional period, and they've got to do that.
But can I just ask you a question on this? Because my understanding is that if you reform the labour market, the entire UK labour market in that way, actually that would not breach the so-called fourth freedom of free movement, and actually the UK could then stay in the single market, couldn't it?
Well, it's a question of access. You know, language is important. There are colleagues within the party who would see continued membership.
But I think continued membership is consistent with what you want, though, isn't it?
Well, access to the single market is what my union wants. We want access.
Why access rather than membership? Because I think from what I think membership is completely consistent with the kind of reforms.
And the reality then that you lead to is, well, is that not remaining in the EU by any other means? And
but now we're playing with words.
Well, we're not really, because we've had a referendum that says we have to leave the European Union. What we need is a negotiated settlement that protects jobs, protects investment, and controls the labour market. I believe Labour are well placed to do that negotiation. I think the Tories are all over the place, and that's the problem we've got. They triggered Article 50 way, way too early. Here we are 15 months on, and nothing is happening. We have 1 year, not till March 2019, we've got till October next year to conclude a deal. That's why they've had to come out and say they're now looking for a transitional arrangement, because they're in a mess.
Now, you were against leaving the EU. Do you think it's possible that the British people could change their minds?
To be honest, the only way that could be tested is at a general election, if there was a party standing on that platform.
Could you see Labour standing on that platform?
I personally don't see Labour doing that, because I think Labour currently have a clear vision of where we should go.
And you support that vision?
Oh, absolutely. If Labour had been in power when the referendum was triggered, I believe now we'd have good relationships with the European Union. I believe we'd be well down a road for an agreement that would give us the opportunity to continue to have access to tariff-free, protecting jobs, protecting investment, and at the same time, we would be developing labour controls in the market that would stop the undercutting that greedy bosses constantly use and abuse migrant workers, creating all kinds of tensions within our communities. There's no need for any of that. Migrant workers aren't to blame for anything. It is the greedy bosses who seek that extra pound and want to abuse people, and we've got countless examples of that.
Now, there are a couple of other issues I wanted to raise with you. One is there will be a vote this week to reduce the threshold necessary for leadership elections from the moment 15% of MPs have to back a candidate for them to get on the ballot paper. That's going to come down probably to 10%. That's the proposal. It looks as though it's going to be carried. But I think you would favour rather more sweeping reforms of the way that leaders are elected, wouldn't you?
Well, I'd like to have a widened input. I think at the moment it's only MPs, it's only the Parliamentary Labour Party that can nominate people. I'd like to see that widened.
So you'd like to see the unions involved
and the membership.
But will you support this reduction in the threshold from 15% to 10%?
Yeah, I mean, it's only an interim stage. The NEC are going to propose a review of all kinds, and there is
So there will be more radical reform put to conference next year?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to some of the issues that we can deal with, whilst at the same time...
Do you think that will recommend members and trade unions having a say in the whole nomination process?
I don't know. We'll have to wait to see what the review says. The important thing for us, of course, is that we don't get involved in navel-gazing. We've still got to make certain that the anti-austerity programme that Jeremy Corbyn took out, only last night here in Brighton, there was 6,500 people at a park in Brighton to listen to him talk. The mood out there is for change.
And what about this issue, because there's quite a lot of passion on both sides when it comes to this issue of when MPs should be reselected, because they've got to go through a reselection process before a general election. Do you think that should happen early or late?
I'd probably favour it being later. I mean, the current rules, not any changes that people are demanding. There is a trigger ballot currently, and that seems to me to be there and can be used at an appropriate stage.
And I've got to ask you the Uber question. Have you ever taken an Uber?
No, never.
And what do you think about the banning of them or the revoking of their licence?
Well, I think this is a massive multinational company who's decided that they've got no interest in complying with the rules.
If they complied with the rules, would you be okay with them getting their licence back?
I'm one of these people that believes that Uber is part of this horrible race to the bottom culture that we have developed in this country, and I much prefer an approach that gives us a rate for the job society, better pay for working people so that they can spend their money. We have sustainable growth as opposed to the phony growth which is based on personal debt that we currently have. So for me, I'll always be using a black Hackney cab.
And if I could just ask you, Chuka, do you think Uber represents this horrible race to the bottom?
I think we need to strip away some of the kind of chat about this and focus on the key thing here, which is a company has been asked to comply with the rules, and it's been impinging and infringing those rules, and that's why it's ended up in the situation that it's in. I mean, I think we've got to be slightly careful.
Can I just ask you, I mean, will you now, because I imagine you're a London MP, I would be staggered if you haven't used Uber.
I'm one of millions of Londoners who've used an Uber.
Will you stop using Uber now?
If they don't comply with the rules, absolutely I won't get an Uber again. But they've got an opportunity here to comply with the rules during this process. And what I can't stand is Uber trying to do what the banks were doing during the financial crisis. And they're saying any criticism of us, any attack on us, is anti-tech and innovation, which is complete nonsense. It's the same way that the bank said any criticism of us, any attack on us, is anti-business, which is equally ludicrous. I think Uber've got an opportunity here. Sort your act out, comply with the rules,
Do you agree with
and
that?
show them that they are not the devil who want to take us to the bottom. I mean, that's what they've got to do.
Here's the truth, Robert. If this was Andy's taxi cab in Brighton, we wouldn't be even talking about it. This is a massive multinational company who make huge profits, pay very little tax.
I don't know what we've got against that. I don't know what we've got against
Well,
Andy's taxi. I don't know what we've got against Andy's taxi cab. I use them all the time. Anyway.